He gushed about meeting me, then texted he wasn't in the right headspace after a party. I think our mutual friend sabotaged everything. So I, 22 female, have been talking to this guy, 22 male, from my uni circle for about 2 months. We texted every day, flirted, and even video called a bunch of times. We live about 2 hours apart, but we had plans to meet halfway. I didn't go fishing for him. He drifted into my DMs after a group seminar we both attended online, where everyone kept their cameras off except us because the prof wanted engagement, and we're the only fools who didn't know how to fake it. He liked that I didn't mute when I sneezed. I liked that he didn't panic when the dog barked in the background on his end. It was that small, stupid human stuff that makes you feel like someone's real and not just a curated rectangle. The first night we texted, it ran late because he sent a photo of his dinner, burned chicken that looked like he'd grilled it inside a volcano, and I sent mine, instant ramen with a soft-boiled egg like I was on a budget cooking show. He said, "We're a disaster, but at least we're symmetrical." He had this particular rhythm: joke, self-drag, then a soft question that invited you in without feeling like a trap. "What's your worst habit?" Followed by, "My room looks like a crime scene after I do laundry." I told him mine was that I check people's read receipts like a deranged detective. He said, "Then I'll keep mine off so you don't spiral." He said it with a smiley and then actually did it, which annoyed me in a cute way, which is the trap. He wasn't just funny. He was responsive in that earned way. Like 9 a.m. he'd reply with a voice note because his hands were full of coffee and a bagel and he wanted to answer properly. 11 p.m. he'd be in bed under a lamp with a book he wasn't really reading, phone held above his face, talking about how his uni library's chairs were designed by someone who hated backs. We compared playlists. He made me a stupid one called Trains to You, with songs that sounded like wind whipping through open windows. We talked about the weirdness of that first September without childhood. I told him I hated how every professor pretended their class was the only one that mattered. He told me about his lab partner who labeled everything in Comic Sans. I sent him a video of my roommate's cat wailing at the fridge. He sent me his nephew laughing so hard he fell over because someone said poop. It felt normal, easy. We had this halfway city in mind to meet, Utrecht, because the station's big and the coffee is passable and it looks like a postcard even when it's raining. He said he'd get there early and people watch. I said I'd bring the good umbrella. We teased each other about who would be more awkward in person. You know, all the flirting that turns into arrangements that turn into real soon. That was us. Twice I canceled. The first time, I actually was sick, like properly, not the kind of sick where you don't want to put on pants. Fever, headache, the works. I sent him a photo on my thermometer to prove it like I was submitting a sick note. He replied fast, "You're not missing a flight, you're missing coffee. We're fine." The second time was work, an actual shift emergency because a coworker no-showed and my boss texted me 10 times. I apologized with my whole soul. He said, "Go make your euros. I'll be here." He kept being kind about it in a way that should have made me relax, but instead made me want to earn it. Like if someone is this decent, you owe them an immaculate version of yourself, or you lose your spot. We reset for this weekend. We picked a cafe with plants everywhere and ugly wooden chairs that looked like they were stolen from school in the 70s. He said he was excited yesterday, 24 hours, he wrote, then sent a weird little dancing sticker. I matched his energy and sent a selfie in a sweater. Asked if it was a meet a cute boy sweater or a stay home and cry sweater. He said, both ideally. I laughed out loud like a dumbass at my phone. I studied. I shaved. I half cleaned my room as if he'd spontaneously teleport into it and judge me. Then he went to a party with our mutual friend. That's the hinge everything swung on, I guess. It was one of those flat parties where the Spotify queue looks like a hostage situation. I wasn't invited because I'm not in that city and because I barely know anyone in that circle in real life. I only know them by proximity, by memes on Instagram, by tags. I saw it on stories. Cheap streamers, someone doing flips on a mattress, red cups, the mutual friend, let's call him Tom, doing a shot with a girl in a football jersey. I watched for flashes of the guy. Let's call him E, because I wanted to see him in his habitat, to be nosy. I saw his shirt once, a blue one, and his hair in the back of a frame, and I told myself not to overread the angle of someone's ear like a psychopath. The next day, he messaged me, "Hey, I'm not in the right headspace to keep talking. It's not your fault. I need time to figure some things out." I stared at it like it was in a language I hadn't learned. That's the entire text. No build-up. Just that. Yesterday, excited. Today, not in the right headspace. No receipt to read because he disabled them months ago for my sake, the irony of which made me want to throw my phone at the wall. I reread it a few times, and the words didn't change into something better. The period looked smug. I thought his family member, his uncle or his grandfather, I forget what she called him officially, but he said close family, and a few months ago he'd gone quiet for a week because of funeral logistics. Grief is not linear. I know that because I've worn it like a jacket in summer, sticky and heavy at weird times. Part of me wanted to be compassionate, to say, okay, this is his wave and it smacked him and he needs to stand up. Another part of me felt like someone had pulled the rug out and asked me to admire the floor. How does someone go from planning a train timetable with you to tapping out like you're an exam they didn't study for? I wrote, deleted. Do you want to talk about it? Looked needy. Are you okay? Looked like I was pretending not to know he meant us. What did Tom say? Was what I actually thought, but that looked paranoid. I ended up sending, I don't want to push, but that's a hard pivot. Did something happen? The bubble hung, then disappeared. No answer. There's a special humiliation in not getting to defend yourself. It lit up every old bruise. The ex who ghosted after 3 dates, the friend who decided I was too intense, the classmate who said I came off cold because I didn't smile at bad jokes. My roommate found me sitting on the kitchen floor next to the fridge like a child. "What happened?" she asked. I read her the text in a flat voice like the automated train lady. She made the sympathetic noise. "Maybe grief," she said gently. I said, "Maybe Tom." She raised an eyebrow. "What would Tom have said?" I shrugged because I didn't know, but that didn't stop me from imagining him, drunk and sloppy, telling you I'm flaky because I canceled twice. Or worse, telling him some rumor, some half-remembered version of me he got from people who don't know me, saved under a wrong label. I told myself to breathe. I told myself not to crowd him. I told myself a lot of things that sounded like the right lines in the kind of advice thread I usually scroll past. And then I didn't listen to any of them because I opened Instagram and watched Tom's story again. I saw E laughing in the background at something. He looked fine. That pissed me off more than if he'd looked wrecked. If you're not in the right headspace to talk to me, how are you in the right headspace to dance to early 2010s pop at a kitchen party? The petty part of me wanted to post a thirst trap. The rational part of me wanted to call my mom. I did neither. Instead, I messaged Tom, "Hey, random, did something happen last night?" He replied instantly, of course, with a, "Then, LOL at the party? No, just beer and bullshit." Why? I hesitated. He messaged me this morning that he's not in the right headspace to talk. It came out of nowhere. Tom sent a thinking face emoji like a 13-year-old. Then, "You should probably ask him." I wanted to scream. I did, I wrote. I got silence. He sent. "He was weird last night, TBH. Quiet. But he wasn't talking about you." The way he put that in italics in my brain made me want to throw up. What was he talking about? I asked. He said, "Family stuff, I think." And, I don't know. He ran into someone. I froze. "Boo," I typed, then added a smiley because I didn't want to look unhinged. "Dignity, LOL. Tom said, "It's not my place. Sorry." And then a thumbs up, the most passive-aggressive icon Apple ever created. I stared at the thumbs up like it was a middle finger. Now my head had a new parade. E running into an ex, E hearing a coy, "How are you?" and spiraling, E realizing his heart wasn't available, E deciding I was a nice distraction and then feeling guilty. Or Tom running his mouth after 3 beers and saying, "She canceled twice, bro. She's not serious." And E deciding to preemptively protect himself. Or Tom exaggerating to cover his own ass. Or nothing at all, and E just waking up with a knot in his chest and deciding to cut ties with anything that looked like a commitment. All possible, none satisfying. I did the thing where you put your phone face down and pretend that makes time move differently. The kitchen's clock still ticked loud because the battery is slightly loose. I felt the urge to text E again, which is exactly how you end up chasing someone into a corner. I forced myself to go to work. Dealt with customers who wanted extra foam like it was a moral issue. Smiled with my mouth only. Checked my phone on my 10-minute break like I was refueling a spaceship. No messages. That night, I drafted a longer thing to E in notes. I respect your headspace, but I'm confused. Yesterday, you were excited to meet. This morning, you're out. If it's grief, I'm not going to be mad at grief. If it's something Tom said, I'd prefer you ask me instead of assuming. If you change your mind, I'll be sad, but I can live with honesty. I just don't love being blindsided. I didn't send it because I didn't want to be the person who writes speeches to someone who can't even be bothered to type. I hate that person, and I was becoming her. My friends have two modes. Men are trash, or let's see all the data. I sent the text to our group chat anyway. Chloe said, what a coward. Maddie said, grief can do that. Laura said, maybe he saw a sign. I said, what sign, Laura? And she sent a gif of a stop sign, which made me snort despite myself. The truth sat in the middle boringly. Both grief and cowardice can wear the same coat. Sometimes people don't choose between hurting and hiding. They just do both. The last 2 months have felt like weightless buildup, memes, long calls, stupid nicknames. He called me Train Goblin because I told him I like sitting backwards on the train, even though it makes me a little nauseous. I called him Lab Rat because of that Comic Sans partner. His voice got filed in my inner ear. He knew the time I usually clocked out. I knew his schedule enough to predict when he'd vanish into a 3-hour lab block. We were in that early stage where you trade tiny, deliberate intimacies. I told him why my dad's never at holidays. He told me about his uncle's jokes at the funeral and how everyone laughed too hard because laughing is safer than crying in front of your aunt. He made me a video where he panned his camera to the ceiling because he was shy and said, I like your face, and then said fuck because he realized he was actually saying it out loud. I saved that video like an idiot. Don't pretend you wouldn't. It's proof you didn't dream it. So yeah, blindsided is a polite word. It felt like being shoved out of a moving car and told it's for my protection. 2 days passed. Nothing for me. I saw him like a ghost in Tom's comments. A LOL here, a fire emoji there. He was clearly alive. I considered unfollowing and then didn't. I considered blocking and then didn't. I pretended I was above it and then stalked his likes like a forensic accountant. Instagram is a bad mirror. You can stare at it until you hate your face. On the 3rd day, Tom messaged me unprompted. He's at his parents' place. I said, cool. He said, he's just like in his head. I said, I'm not asking you to be his PR rep. He sent a grimace emoji. He told me not to get involved. I'm probably overstepping. I said, no offense, but you've already stepped onto my neck. He typed, paused, typed. He did say something about feeling bad that you canceled twice. Like he was excited, and then it started to feel like it wasn't going to happen. My stomach dropped even though I'd predicted that exact line. Knowing doesn't help. It felt stupidly unfair, like being penalized for the truth. I wrote, I was sick and working. Tom said, yeah, I told him that. I stared at the screen, feeling the heat rise. And I typed. He said it wasn't that. He said it was him. Which, yeah, I wanted to throw my phone again. So it's everything and nothing, I wrote. Thanks for the non-answer. He sent, sorry. And then, he's not a bad guy. I wrote, cool. Neither am I. And put my phone on airplane mode before I said something like tell him I hope he steps on a Lego. That night, I caved and sent E a shorter version of my notes message. Not the whole vulnerable monologue, but something with bones. I'm not pushing you to talk if you don't want to. I just need to know if this is grief headspace or if you've changed your mind about me. I can accept either. I just don't want to fill in the blanks with bad guesses. I stared while my message sent with a little whoosh. An hour passed, then 2. The next morning there was a reply. It's not about you. I am sorry. I can't do this right now. That was it. The exact kind of sentence designed to tell you nothing while pretending to tell you everything. He didn't even address the thing about changing his mind. I felt rage like a clean high. My roommate came out holding her toothbrush like a wand, saw my face, and said, "Oh shit." I read the text to her in a voice so tight it made my jaw ache. "Do I say anything?" I asked. She said, "Say got it. Take care. Say the thing that makes you hate yourself the least tomorrow." I typed, "Got it. Take care." I press send. I want to puke. Here's what people don't tell you about being understanding. It's thankless. No one gives you a medal for not blowing up someone's phone. There's no prize for swallowing your pride and leaving space. You just sit there in the space you created, and it echoes. I spiraled. Not publicly. No subtweets, no cryptic captions. I have 1 ounce of dignity left, and it's that I do not make a clown of myself on Maine. But privately, my brain went on tour. I replayed every micro decision of the last 2 months. The time I didn't call even though I wanted to because I worried I'd be annoying. The time he said, "Sorry, slow reply," after 20 minutes, and I said, "No worries," and then worried I seemed too chill. The cancellations. I hated them more in retrospect, even though past me didn't have a choice. It's insane that we punish our past selves for not foreseeing future standards. I started to write the story of what happened to myself like it was a police report because that's what my brain does when it's shamed. It creates a file. On September 2nd, he sent a voice note about eggs. On the 9th, I canceled for work. He sent me a photo of a sunset and wrote, "Another day." On the 16th, video call where he showed me the ugly lamp in his childhood bedroom, and I said I'd steal it. On the 20th, new plan for the 28th, Utrecht Station, 1400 hours, the Plant Cafe. On the 27th, he was excited. On the 28th morning, he sent the Headspace text. Case summary, abrupt end after party, cause unknown, possible witnesses, Tom, unnamed someone he ran into, additional factors, grief, contamination, my lawfully canceled plans. Motive, fear, avoidance, reallocation of hope. I know I sound dramatic. It's not just about a boy, obviously. It's about the pieces of myself I put on the table and the weird feeling of having them picked up and examined and then placed back like they're defective. It's about the math of desire and respect and timing. It's about the way we say it's not you to people when what we mean is it's you adjacent. It's the idea of you. It's the way I feel when I imagine a future with you, and I don't like the shape of my body in that future mirror. There's no way to say that kindly. So they don't. They call Headspace. A week went by. He didn't come back with clarity. I didn't get a drunken miss you at 2 a.m. to reassure me that this was just a temporary storm. I'm honestly grateful I didn't. Clean breaks hurt, but jagged ones get infected. I bumped into Tom in real life at a cafe near campus because the universe has a sense of humor. He was with 2 people I didn't know well. I was with Chloe. We did the awkward nod that says we recognize each other from pixels. He came over anyway with that swagger of a guy who's been told he's chill enough times to believe it. "Hey," he said, "you good?" I wanted to say, "Do I look good?" But I also wanted my coffee, so I said fine. He dropped in the chair next to us like we invited him. "He's not himself," he said, unprompted, like a continuation of our last chat. Chloe raised an eyebrow, so hard it almost left her forehead. "Who?" Tom blinked. I sipped my coffee. "Yeah, I got that memo." He fidgeted. "He's at his folks." He turned off his phone for a day. He's like, "Not okay." There's this thing people do when they know they're giving you scraps. They over-explain without specifics. I looked at him and said, "Did he run into his ex?" Tom chewed his lip. "No, he said it too fast." I laughed because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. "Okay, so yes." He grimaced. "They didn't rekindle anything. I don't think. It just..." He flailed his hands like he was washing windows. He spiraled. Chloe leaned in. Is he spiraling because of grief or because he saw the ghost of relationships past and realized he can't do feelings? Tom looked like he'd stepped into a pop quiz. "Both," he offered. I shook my head. "You know whose job it was to tell me that?" I asked. "Not yours." He deflated. "I know. I told him to tell you." I smiled without humor. And he said, "Not in the right headspace." Tom nodded, relieved to have a line we'd all heard. "Yeah, Chloe said, "Tell him I said grow a pair," and then she got up to get a napkin. Tom looked at me and very quietly said, "He liked you." Past tense burned like a match head. I shrugged. Cool. He hesitated. He was scared it wasn't real. That's when something in me snapped a little. He doesn't get to decide what's real for me, I said. He gets to decide what he can handle. But he doesn't get to rewrite this like it was imaginary. I was there. Tom swallowed. "Yeah," he said. "I'm sorry." He meant it. I nodded, even though sorry is useless. He added, "You're not flaky." I laughed for real then, a little bark. "Thank you so much for the certificate." After that, I stopped checking his likes. I muted him because I'm not a masochist. Not completely. I corralled my brain into other things. Exams, playlists, other people's problems. It didn't erase him. He was still a ghost in my phone, still a shape in the space between songs. But I didn't let him be the only thing. Then, because of course, he texted again after 2 weeks. Not long enough to be fresh, not long enough to be vintage. It came at 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday when I was halfway asleep. "Hey, I'm sorry for dropping off like that. I didn't handle it well." I put my phone on my chest and stared at the ceiling like it had subtitles. I let it sit until morning because I'm trying to grow the part of me that doesn't eat sweets when they're thrown at me. In the daylight, it looked both better and worse. Better because it admitted fault. Worse because it was still vague. I typed, "I appreciate the apology. It did hurt." He replied, "I know." Then, my head was a mess. Family stuff hit me. And yeah, I saw someone I used to be with. It messed me up. There was, finally, the line we'd tiptoed around. I waited for him to say, "But it wasn't about you." He wrote, "I really like talking to you." I still do. Of course he said that. It's the shiny bait. I took a breath and asked, "What do you want from me exactly?" He typed, then stopped, then typed again. "I don't know. I'm not ready to meet. I don't want to hurt you more." I stared and said out loud to my empty room, "Then what are we doing?" He must have felt the heat through the phone because he sent, "I just wanted to say sorry." It's wild how sorry can yank open the window you've been nailing shut. I could feel that hope animal in me sniffing at it like, fresh air. I pushed it away gently. "Thanks," I wrote. "I accept the apology, but I can't hang around in case you decide you're ready. That's not fair to me." My thumb shook a little. He sent, "I get it." Then, after a pause, "I'm really sorry." I didn't answer. I put my phone in a drawer like it was contraband. Chloe clapped when I told her. Maddie said, "Proud of you." Laura said, "Maybe in the future." And I cut her off with a look that said, "No futures." I blocked him? No, I still haven't. Blocking feels like pretending it never happened, and I'm done with pretending. I muted him into the quiet corner of the internet and kept his playlist because I actually like it and I refuse to let him steal songs from me. Here's the part one hate admitting. I still think about him. Not all the time, but when I see a blue shirt in a crowd, or when the train sits backwards and I choose it on purpose. I think about how fast someone can pivot from "excited to see you tomorrow" to "I can't do this," and how that says nothing about your worth and everything about their thresholds. I think about how I canceled twice and I'd do it again because I was sick and I had to work, and I won't rehearse apology for being a person. I think about how I did everything I could without annihilating my dignity, and that's the line I want to keep for myself. And yeah, I think about Tom. Not like that. I think about the role of narrators. How we rely on other people to explain us to each other. And how that's a terrible idea, because other people are messy, self-interested, half-drunk archivists at best. Tom tried to wedge himself into the middle, and ended up saying both too much and not enough. He was a mirror at a funhouse angle. I looked ugly in it. So did he. No one looked true. There's this story I keep telling myself because it helps. He didn't lie. Not exactly. He said he wasn't in the right headspace, which was true enough. He said it wasn't my fault, which is debatable. Things aren't fault, they're weather systems. He said he needed time to figure things out, which apparently he did. But he also did the very human thing of choosing the path that protected him from guilt and discomfort in the moment, which happened to be the path of dropping me. I can live with that being the reason. I can live with the fact that I don't want to be with someone who reads, "You canceled twice for real reasons," as a prophecy of doom. I'm not a test he failed. I'm a person he didn't pick up. That hurts in a clean, fixed way. Every few days someone asks if I've heard from him, because people love episodic drama. I say, "He apologized." They say, "Are you going to meet?" I say, "No." They nod like I've passed a test, and then they tell me about their own Headspace stories. We all have one. The person who softened our insides and then left like a polite thief. It's boring, common, awful. If you're reading this to get advice you can apply to your own situation, I don't have the 5-point plan that will save you. I have this. Ask the question you're scared to ask directly. "What do you want from me exactly?" is a good one. If the answer is mush, treat it like a no. Don't audition for a role that keeps getting postponed. Don't let someone else's grief draft you as collateral. Hold both truths. People are allowed to be not okay, and you're allowed to not be their practice ground. I keep thinking about that plant cafe with the ugly chairs. In another branch of the multiverse we met there. Maybe we were awkward for 15 minutes, and then it was fine, or it was fine for 15 minutes, and then it was awkward, and we found a way through. Maybe he told me about his relative, and I put my hand on his knee, and it was very, very clear that this is the kind of intimacy I want, the kind where you get the whole thing, not just the charming bits. Or maybe we met, and it sucked, and we parted, and I came home and told Chloe, "Never again," and we laughed. That would have been cleaner than this. But we don't live in multiverses we can control. We live in this one, where he said Headspace, and I said okay, and then I learned something about myself. Maybe that's the only prize you get for being decent. You get to keep yourself. People online always ask, "Why do you even care if it was just 2 months?" Because it was 2 months of letting someone see me at weird angles. He saw me in my bad sweater. He heard me laugh snort. He knew the name of my middle school bully. I don't give that to everyone. If that sounds dramatic, congratulations on being less sentimental than me. I am, annoyingly, sentimental. I attach to specificities. The sound of his laugh when he tried to whistle and failed. The way he dragged vowels when he was tired. That stupid dancing sticker, which is why it felt like a rug pull. Not because he owed me a forever, because he owed me a sentence with a spine. So yeah, one day he was excited, the next he pulled back completely. It wasn't because I was a monster. It wasn't because I'm unlovable. It was because he had a storm and didn't want to see if I could handle rain. I would have held an umbrella. He didn't ask. That's on him. My job is to not stand in the street waiting for him to change his mind while traffic barrels down. I kept the umbrella. I keep walking. I still sit backwards on trains because I like seeing where I've been, even if it makes me a little sick sometimes. It's honest. It's a reminder that motion is not always graceful. You move anyway.